Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the life divine with our beloved Ranga. I'd like to tell you also that we have something very special in store for you. Every Friday, Indian time, 10 to 11, we will begin the series Essays on the Gita, once again with our beloved Ranga. Today we are on indeterminates and cosmic determinations.
So today we have to read, but neither is the separate. That's where we have to read.
Mm-hmm.
But since we are in page 331, and there are some people, I don't know if they have already read the Life Divine or not, or they are reading it, I don't know. But this chapter, the indeterminable, the cosmic determinates and the indeterminable. I'll just give a brief explanation of the chapter, and then we'll read the previous para, what he has said in summary, and then we'll read what. Otherwise, it will all be hazy.
Very good.
So, this chapter, the indeterminable, the indeterminate, and the determinates. So, what does he mean by that? It is one of the biggest chapters in Life Divine. This one and the next one, Brahman, Purusha, Ishvara, Maya, Prakriti, Shakti. These are the very big chapters, about 40 pages each chapter. Of course, the last chapter is the biggest of all, 60 pages, the future evolution. But these two also are, but we'll put the whole thing in a nutshell and just say what is meaning. This is a description of the one becoming the many. And when the one, which is itself featureless, silent, infinite, eternal, without any characteristics, absolutely indeterminable, and because it has no characteristics, it cannot be described in any way because there are no features, featurelessness. But it starts putting on features as it starts descending into manifestation. So when it goes into manifestation, slowly, it starts putting on characteristics. And the more characteristics it has, the more determinate it is, because you can determine its qualities and you can say it is like this, this weight, this color, this form, this shape. This is the whole process. So the one at the highest level is the indeterminable, no features, nothing at all. Just like the seed. If one blows up the seed, you will not see fruits and flowers and leaves in it, you will not see. But yet it has the potentiality to create all these things. So, the indeterminable creates determinate forms of itself, and each determinate again produces more determinates, and therefore if you take any one determinate, the one before that, the one that is the parent of this determinate, is itself the indeterminate, and the one that is now determinate produces again something else which becomes more determinate than itself. Just to give a very simple example, we can give any examples, but one example is, if you start with molten metal, okay, it has no form as yet. It has color, shape, weight and all, but still this is only a description. So this molten metal can be made into metal sheets. It can be made into metal ingots. It can be made into metal wires. Okay, so already 3 forms. Now I can describe the ingot, I can describe the plate, I can describe so it's a determinate. But itself, that plate can be converted into so many other things. It can be converted into a car, it can be converted into a vessel, it can be converted into so many other things. So that again becomes the indeterminate of that which is determinate. Similarly, take a wire, okay? The wire is the determinate of the molten metal which is indeterminate. But that wire can be used in so many ways, and different wires. I can use it as a electrical cable. I can use it for making a window mesh. I can use it for, even if I make a thick one, ropeway. So there are so many things. So this is the basic idea, that the one becoming the many does it in a very ordered, systematic manner, goes on adding features to it. Now it depends at which level of consciousness you are. You can see the indeterminate Brahman, the reality which is absolutely without features. So this, in our Indian philosophy, we call it the Nirguna, the without qualities. Okay, divine without qualities. So, or you may experience it as Saguna. You may experience him as with qualities, the personal aspect of the divine and the impersonal aspect of the divine. So, this is the brief introduction to what we have been saying.
I wanted to ask if you would just mention to our audience that to ascribe any name to the divine would be wrong. Because
it depends at which level he is.
At which level you are.
Yeah, because suppose he is at the highest level,
right?
It's indeterminate. But the moment he takes on qualities and different things, in fact, even the four aspects of the mother, there is the there is the Maheshwari, Mahakali, Mahasaraswati, Mahalakshmi. So there are so many different. So they have characteristics. We can say what their qualities are.
At the next level down.
Yeah. So it depends at which level you are. In fact, when we come down to the lowest level, if you are in a consciousness where you can see, you will see the divine in everything. In the table, in the chair, in everything. So, depends at which level one is, you will see the determinate which is appropriate to that level of consciousness. Okay? So this is the whole problem with the different philosophies which fight among themselves. Oh, the divine is formless. No, the divine is with form. So this is the whole problem.
Especially the religions.
Yeah. The Jains, for instance, they think that the divine is formless. It's foolish to think of divine with a form. The Arya Samajists, they also think it is idiotic to worship a stone idol. It's meaningless. Okay? Then, Islam also forbids a divine form. They say, no, you should not even draw. So these are all different ideas. But Srimad had a very interesting experience which he has given in the poems, a sonnet, okay? The stone goddess. It so happened that he crossed the Narmada river. He was in Baroda, in Gujarat for 13 years he was there. And he crossed the Narmada river and in a dilapidated temple, okay, he saw the stone, image of a stone goddess, and he could see the living presence of the divine in that stone. So it is not foolishness to think that the divine is formless. He can also take form. And the truth of this is brought out very well with the story of Vivekananda. We might as well tell it here. Okay, so the Raja in Punjab, when Ramakrishna passed away, Vivekananda started traveling all over India barefoot, okay, and without any. He was a wandering monk, okay. And he traveled, but he was so knowledgeable and he was such a personality. Wherever he went, he was received by kings and, given great respect. When he was in Punjab, the Punjab king at that time was a Arya Samajist. And Arya Samaj don't believe in God with form. So, he started having an argument with the Raja, okay. And Vivekananda said, that's not true. God can have a form. It depends on him. If he wants to have a form, he can have. So he said, no, it can't be. So the minister was standing by the side of the Raja, and Vivekananda told the minister, have you got a photograph of the Raja, of the king? He said, yes. He said, please bring that photograph. So he brought that photograph, and Vivekananda told him, please put it on the ground. So he put it on the ground. He said, now will you please spit on it? Then naturally this minister is hesitating. How can he spit on the Maharaja who is his king? He said, why are you not doing it? He says, because it is representative of him. That's exactly what the divine is. The form is a representative of the divine. Then he converted the Raja. He got converted. So this difference between different philosophies, one saying that the divine is with form and without form. All this is partially true. But the greatest would be that both are true. Okay, so now we read I'll do one thing. I'll read out the summary of what he said earlier. Okay? In the previous para, what he said, we'll read out in summary. But the supermind is beyond these determinations. So in the supermind, at the third level, what we call, it is free of determinations, without any quality, without any features. Even though originating and manifesting them, just like the seed, the absolute in its aspect of the indeterminable is experienced by man as the immutable, the vacant, the featureless, the infinite, the impersonal, the nirguna. The nirguna means Srimad uses the words negating positives. Okay, nirguna, the negating positives. He is not this, he is not this, he is not blue, he is not green, he is not this weight, he is not that. That's it.
There's a term for that. What is the term for? Huh? No, negating positive, something that contrasts.
Pardon?
There's a term for that, and I've not been trying to remember that term.
Well, she said neti is the word. So, when you want to describe something, okay, he is not this. When you can't describe anything, you say it is neti. Na iti. It is not this, it is not this, it is not this, it is not this. The Jains have a very interesting philosophy. According to them, you can describe nothing fully. Even if I take this stool, okay, I say it is not red, it is not this, it is not that, it is not this, it is, then I can give positives. It is made of wood, it has got this color, it has got this shape, it is this weight. I can go on giving as many as possible. Now I have to start on the negatives. And if I start on the negatives, it will be infinite. It is not this, it is not this. So, that is the reality according to the Jain philosophy, that it may be, it may not be. Syadva, nasad syadva. It may be. So everything is indeterminate in the final analysis. So this is the saguna and the nirguna. So this is what Srimad is saying. In the supermind, there is absolutely no features at all. Although it contains all features. It's the origin of all features, but itself featureless. Like the seed. If you think of the seed, you blow it up, you will not see fruits and flowers in it. Even the human beings, if you go down to the DNA and the RNA, you will not see hair, you will not see bones, you will not see, but it all contains, the possibilities are all contained there. The chromosome, exactly like that. So this whole thing, the physical world, is a symbol of spiritual realities. Everything in the physical world is a symbol of the spiritual realities. So, negating positive says, because then there are positive negatives also. Okay, that's very interesting. He uses the phrase because essentially they are negative, but they are very real to you in real life. Examples: death. It's real to you. Falsehood, it is real to you. Suffering is real to you. But if you go to another level of consciousness, you see that these are all images and not as true as you think they are. So they are the positive negatives. Now we use the word negating positives. So, there are of course positives also. Omniscience, omnipotence, all this is there. Okay. So, on the other hand, the affirming positives, there you are. Okay? The affirming positives of the Absolute are experienced by man as the determinables. The shapes and forms in the universe, the finites, the features, the characteristics, the personal aspect of the divine, Saguna. Ishvara, master of the universe. So both are possible depending at which level you are and the inclination of your nature. According to that, you will see the divine. If you are a Buddhist, you will see the divine as Buddha. If you are a follower of Ramana Maharshi, you will see him as Ramana Maharshi. If you are a Shaivite, then you will see the form of Shiva or Vishnu. It depends how you are. As you approach, so the divine reveals himself to you in that manner. That's the thing. So, now we will read what we have to read today. Okay, so I am reading the next paragraph. But neither is the separate cognition of them entirely an illusion or a complete error of the ignorance. This too has its validity for spiritual experience. For these primary aspects of the Absolute are fundamental spiritual determinates or indeterminates, answering at the spiritual end or beginning to the general determinates or generic indeterminates of the material end or inconscient beginning of the descending and ascending manifestation. Those that seem to us negative carry in them the freedom of the infinite from limitation by its own determinations. Their realization disengages the spirit within, liberates us, and enables us to participate in this supremacy. Thus, when once we pass into or through the experience of immutable self, we are no longer bound and limited in the inner status of our being by the determinations and creations of nature. On the other, the dynamic side, this original freedom enables the consciousness to create a world of determinations without being bound by it. It enables it also to withdraw from what it has created and recreate in a higher truth formula. It is on this freedom that is based the Spirit's power of infinite variation of the truth possibilities of existence, and also its capacity to create, without tying itself to its workings, any and every form of necessity or system of order. The individual being too, by experience of these negating absolutes, can participate in that dynamic liberty, can pass from one order of self-formulation to a higher order. At the stage when from the mental it has to move towards its supramental status, one most liberatingly helpful, if not indispensable experience that may intervene is the entry of a total nirvana of mentality and mental ego, a passage into the silence of the spirit. In any case, a realization of the pure self must always precede the transition to that mediating eminence of the consciousness from which a clear vision of the ascending and descending stairs of manifested existence is commanded, and the possession of the free power of ascent and descent becomes a spiritual prerogative. An independent completeness of identity with each of the primal aspects and powers, not narrowing as in the mind into a soul engrossing experience, seeming to be final and integral, for that would be incompatible with the realization of the unity of all aspects and powers of existence, is a capacity inherent in consciousness in the infinite. That indeed is the base and justification of the overmind cognition and its will to carry each aspect, each power, each possibility to its independent fullness. But the supermind keeps always and in every status or condition the spiritual realization of the unity of all. The intimate presence of that unity is there even within the completest grasp of each thing. Each state given its whole delight of itself, each state given its whole delight of itself, power and value. There is thus no losing sight of the affirmative aspects, even when there is the full acceptance of the truth of the negative. The overmind keeps still the sense of this underlying unity. That is for it the secure base of the independent experience. In mind, the knowledge of the unity of all aspects is lost on the surface. The consciousness is plunged into engrossing, exclusive, separate affirmations. But there too, even in the mind's ignorance, the total reality still remains behind the exclusive absorption, and can be recovered in the form of a profound mental intuition, or else in the idea or sentiment of a underlying truth of integral oneness. In the spiritual mind, this can develop into an ever-present experience. A huge para and pretty complicated. So,
Yes, very much so.
let's try to see whether we can make some sense out of it. Okay, so the first thing that we must realize is there is not just one reality which is the absolute and the only thing which is real. There is a descending and an ascending gradation of even reality. This is what we have to understand. And depending at which level of consciousness we are, we will see the reality according to that consciousness. This is a very fundamental thing that one must understand. Also, there is another thing, you can put it in this way. There is the objective universe. If I am not there, the universe exists. If nobody is here also, the universe exists. So let's say that is the cosmos. Okay. Now, there is a consciousness which is experiencing this cosmos. You are experiencing the cosmos. I am experiencing the cosmos. A cat is experiencing the cosmos. A worm is experiencing the cosmos. A yogi is experiencing the cosmos. How are they experiencing the cosmos? Take the worm. It's got only one sense, the tactile sense. It can't see, maybe it can't hear also. It's got only one sense. So through that one sense, it is experiencing the world. Naturally, its knowledge will be very limited and it will see only that aspect of the divine. If it meets a fire, it will immediately know it's a fire, it will go back. But sounds it will not hear. There are creatures with 2 senses, creatures with 3 senses, creatures with 4 senses, finally 5 senses. So, there is the universal cosmos, there is a consciousness which is experiencing this, and that experiencer can be at any level. He can be a worm, he can be a cat, he can be a human being, he can be a yogi. How are they seeing the physical world? When there is something to be known and there is a knower, what is the connection between the two? The connection is the instrument of knowledge. The instrument of knowledge up to our level are the senses. Right? So, if I don't have senses, the world will not exist for me. Very clear. So, the world is there, but I need senses to be able to experience that. Are there only one type of sense? Even in the physical world, we see that there is creature with 1 sense, 2 senses, 3 senses, 4 senses, 5 senses. So, the more senses you have, the more you will understand the reality. It will be different for you. But are the senses the only way of experiencing? That's the whole question. Because the senses are so imperfect. God has created senses also in so many different ways. My eyes are limited. I may even be colorblind. But look at the chameleon. It's got an eye that goes here and there. It's a different type of sight. It's a different instrument. So there are different instruments created. And suppose I go above the mind, do I need to use my senses? No. I can start using subtle senses. So I'll start seeing the world in a totally different way if I go to that higher level of consciousness. So, is that the only one? There again, it depends at which level of consciousness you are. Okay? And this is also very clear, we can understand. If I want to see microbes or COVID-19, if I want to see, I have to use a microscope. I can't see it with my eyes. The instruments are not enough. So I need to change my instrumentation to get knowledge. If I want to see the farthest stars in the universe, I have to use a telescope. I can't use my eyes, I can't use my microscope. So what you want to see, you have to use the right instruments. Okay? So, depending on what instruments you are using, you may see the featureless or you may see the nirguna or the saguna. So this is the fact. Now, there is a gradation of all these things. Above the mind, there is the instrument of sight. Sight becomes the drishti, darshana. It becomes the far superior instrument to the senses. Just see the reality. Okay? Then you go to a slightly higher level, intuition becomes an instrument of knowledge. You're changing the instrument of knowledge. What is the best instrument? Identification. You become what you want to see. You don't need to, you know what you are. So you become identification. And that's possible even with the divine. Okay? So this is basically what he's saying in this paragraph. With this background, we'll start looking at each sentence. So, in the previous paragraph, he has spoken about the saguna and the nirguna, the qualityed and the qualityless. But neither is the separate cognition of them entirely an illusion or a complete error of the ignorance. He is referring to the experience of the nirvana. Okay, when you make your mind silent, or in any case, even if the mind is not silent, you somehow emerge out of the prison of your body, mind, life and go up. You are using sight and your way of looking at the physical world changes. You start seeing it as only images without substance, which you interpret in so many different ways. Some people say it is half reality. Some people say it is total unreality. Okay? Even in the physical world, there are realities which is half real. Take the shadow. It's a conditional reality. It can vanish. Take the blue sky. Is it blue really? There is no blue there. So you see totally different. Okay. You are seeing the falsehood and you take it to be the reality. Look at the rainbow. There is no rainbow there. It's an illusion of your senses. You go there, you will find no rainbow. So, this is what he's saying. So, it is much more striking when you change your instrumentation and change your status of knowledge. So, when you go to the experience of nirvana, the world becomes unreal for you. Your mind becomes absolutely quiet and you see the physical world as unreal. It's worthwhile going a little more into detail to this, because then we can understand the mechanism of why it should be so. Okay, so I am seeing the physical world, I said, through the senses. But is that the only reality? No. Because take a newborn baby. He's got all his senses. He's got eyes, he's got ears, he's got nose, everything. Does he understand a single thing? No. He doesn't understand anything at all. He doesn't know who his mother is, he doesn't know what the sounds are, he's hearing sounds, but nothing. So the reality is that the senses are the receiving stations for data from the cosmos. Then this data is processed and sent through nerves to the brain. And the brain is telling you what you are seeing and what you are not seeing. And so the brain has to be programmed. The baby has to be programmed, his brain has to be programmed. 4 or 5 years, it depends. Nowadays, 2-year-olds also they are ready to understand the world. So, if you don't have eyes, you will not see. The world will not exist for you. If your nerves are damaged, you will not experience the world. What about your mind? If your mind becomes absolutely silent and doesn't work, it's called the physical mind, the manas. Okay? If the physical mind doesn't work and says, I am going on holiday, I am not working today, no interpretation. That is what happens when you make your mind silent and you experience the world as only data, no interpretation. That's why it seems to be unreal to you. This is what he's saying. So he's saying, when you experience that world in that sense, the separate cognition entirely as an illusion or a complete error of the ignorance, it is not an illusion. It is the way of looking at that reality at that level. There is also a reason for that, because sometimes Srimda raises the question, does this mean that the divine is cheating me? Okay, I see the physical world as real, and then I go somewhere in a higher consciousness, not a lower consciousness. I go to higher consciousness and see what I was thinking is reality is not the reality. I was being cheated all this time. So the answer to that is, no, you are not being cheated at all. You are being taken from one level of reality to a more reality. The first experience is a negativity. Don't think that what you saw was the reality. It is not. Okay? Now you go to another level where you see the more reality. So it's again a gradation. So the first experience convinces you that the reality of the physical as you are seeing through your senses is not what it is. The world is not unreal, but you are receiving the data, and what you are thinking, your mind is telling you, that is unreal. It's only an image in the mind. You are not seeing the reality. You are seeing an image in your mind. And if the mind goes silent, no image. So you see the physical world is unreal. Right? So then it becomes possible to understand these experiences. So neither is the separate cognition of them entirely an illusion or a complete error of the ignorance. So I'm using the word entire illusion or a complete error. It is not. It is part error and part reality. Okay? This too has its validity for spiritual experience. It teaches you that the values you are giving to the physical world are not that important at all. That's what it means. Okay? So, for these primary aspects of the Absolute are fundamental spiritual determinates or indeterminates answering at this spiritual end or beginning to the general determinates or generic indeterminates of the material end or inconscient beginning of the descending and the ascending manifestation. So, if you are manifesting from the highest level, you have the indeterminable, which is creating determinates more and more features and more things which are describable. Okay? But you can also, matter also is producing things. Matter itself is indeterminate in this sense that you will not see all the things coming out of it. You will not see plants, you will not see animals, you will not see men in the matter. But it is producing all these. So that also is an indeterminate in a certain sense. Okay? So, in fact, we are seeing matter and we say it is solid, it is tangible, it is this. But science comes and tells you that matter is nothing but energy. So again, energy is something intangible. So therefore it is also indeterminate. Or even indeterminable. So, this too has its validity for spiritual experience. For these primary aspects of the Absolute are fundamental spiritual determinates or indeterminates answering at the spiritual end or beginning. We'll explain this. To the general determinates or generic indeterminates of the material end or the inconscient beginning of the descending and ascending manifestation. So, usually many philosophies describe these planes of consciousness from the highest level to the lowest level as ether, air, fire, water, earth. Okay? This is one way of describing. You can see very clearly, ether is absolutely, no description will describe ether. It's almost nothing. Air, you can almost always feel. It can be cold, it can be warm, it can be hot, it can be violent, it can be... So it's got features already. When you come down to ether, air, fire, it's even more. You can even see it. and it can have different characteristics. Then you come down to water. So these are not the real elements. They are representative of the Satchidananda that is becoming more and more gross, more and more gross, more and more gross. This image of ether, air, fire, water, earth is descriptive of the quality of the grossness. That's all. It's not water, it's not earth. Okay? But that describes the grossness. So, ether is the indeterminate producing air, which is a determinate form of ether. But air itself is an indeterminate in relation to fire. Okay? So, each one is above it is the indeterminate, less features, and below it is the more features. So, one particular thing he is using now a very interesting word. He is using the word generic. Ether is the indeterminable. It generates a determinate, which is air. Air also now generates a determinate, which is fire. Fire is a indeterminate in respect to water. Itself is a determinate, but is indeterminate in respect to what is coming below it. So this is the chain that he is describing. That's why he is saying the spiritual end or beginning. Which is the end and which is the beginning? It depends. Matter also is the beginning, spirit also is the beginning. And if matter is the beginning, spirit is the end. And if spirit is the beginning, matter is the end. That's why he is saying this. He is saying spiritual end or beginning to the general determinates or generic indeterminates. So, a general determinate, just now as we said, these five are the determinates, but they are also the indeterminates, both. Each one can be described as depending at which level one is. Right? So
they are called indeterminate only in respect of the next one.
That's right.
Otherwise, they are determinate.
Yes.
Fire is a determinate.
That's right.
But compared to the lower one, it is an indeterminate.
That's right. As I told you, if you take molten metal, it's an indeterminate.
Compared to the sheet.
And you have a sheet, you have a wire, you have ingots. And there again, they become the indeterminate for what you're going to do with the wires. It can be an electrical cable, it can be a ropeway, it can be a wire netting, it can be so many things. Okay. So these are the fundamental spiritual determinates. He is talking of the ether, air, fire, water, earth. So at the spiritual end and material end or inconscient beginning of the descending and ascending manifestation. Note, there is an ascending manifestation and a descending manifestation also. So in the ascending manifestation is a consciousness that is growing. In the descending manifestation, you are going more and more towards gross matter. So, this is, each way it is a manifestation. Because the consciousness is hidden in matter and you don't see it, so it is slowly emerging. It's an ascending manifestation. That which is unmanifested in matter is getting manifested.
So, is the supramental an ascending manifestation?
Oh, very interesting question, because he has used a very interesting word here. He is using the word mediating eminence. Mediating eminence is the supermind. So what is it mediating between? It's mediating between the highest Satchidananda and the created world. The supermind is not the highest plane of existence. It is that which creates the world. So this word he has used here, mediating eminence. Eminence, it's a fantastic plane of consciousness. But it is mediating.
He also calls it the mid-world.
Pardon?
He also calls supermind the mid-world.
Yeah, that's right. It's the middle. It's the middle of the unmanifested and the manifested. If the supermind didn't exist, there would be no universe. Supermind is the creator of the universe. Okay? So we jumped a lot because you spoke of supermind. So mediating eminence means the supermind. Then, now I go to the next sentence. Those that seem to us negative carry in them the freedom of the infinite from limitation by its own determinations. Now, what does he mean by this? Those that seem to us negative. You go to the self, you go to the Brahman consciousness, the world becomes illusion, negative. What does it mean? It means that the divine is not bound by the forms that he is creating. So that's a freedom aspect he is showing you. We see it in a negative way, but it's not negative. I am not bound by these things. I can be without any features. That's what the experience is. That's what he's saying here. Those that seem to us negative carry in them the freedom of the infinite from limitation by its own determinations. You can even interpret the sentence in another way. Okay? You can say the divine is truth.
But he's also falsehood.
That negative says, I am not bound by truth alone. I can be this also. That's what is meaning. Because we are seeing things in a negative and positive way. For the divine, there is no negative and positive. It is just the same thing taking different aspects. As we discussed last time, I think. Take the wind. Okay? So, the wind can be very gentle and very sweet and very nice, and you enjoy it and say, wonderful, very positive. The divine is so positive. It is very comfortable, and I am very comfortable with it. But he can make that very same wind come at you at 200 miles an hour, and then you are not going to enjoy it. But for the divine, it is only wind. For us, it is soft wind and hard wind, falsehood and truth. That's the whole point. Right? So, those that seem to us negative carry in them the freedom of the infinite from limitation by its own determination. So the divine, when he takes you to the self, he is not cheating you. He is telling you that I am quite free. I am not bound by the physical world. I can be something totally formless and featureless. That's what he is saying. Okay? Then, those that seem to us negative, carry in them the freedom of the infinite from limitation by its own determination. Their realization disengages the spirit within, liberates us, and enables us to participate in this supremacy. So, now at the individual level, my soul is within me, and I think that I am the body, mind, life. Okay? But when it goes out, it experiences the negative aspect of the divine. Your body, mind, life is transient. It is not real at all. Okay? So, you can participate in this supremacy. This naturally, when you have a form, it is limited. And when you have the formless, it is unlimited. It's a supreme aspect. The form is the limited form. When you are seeing only a limited form and limiting your consciousness to that, you are in ignorance. You are not seeing the formless, which is more real. That's what he's saying. Okay? Participate in this supremacy. Thus, when once we pass into or through the experience of immutable self, what does he mean by this? You can rise from your body, mind, life to this first level, higher mind. So, into. But you can go to the intuitive mind, you can go to the overmind directly, through. It depends on the individual. He can go double promotion. He can go 2 steps up. So that's what he's meaning by into or through the experience of immutable self. We are no longer bound and limited in the inner status of our being by the determinations and creations of nature.
So one does not have to go through each preceding degree of higher mind, illumined mind, intuitive
It's an interesting question what you're saying, because if you go in the beginning, you jump also. It's possible to jump. But you're not going to remain there forever. You're going to drop down again because the gravitational pull, the imperfections of a lower nature is going to pull you down. Every yogi has only experiences in the beginning, not realizations. So, for what Srimdo's yoga is, he says you have to go through each step. Then you understand the whole. I can't go from kindergarten stage to higher course in knowledge by skipping all the classes in between. I can't understand nothing at all. So it's better to go through each one. Instead of those, he says that's the way the Vedic rishis went. Each one describing, and he has a chapter on that in Life Divine, and the chapter is Ascension and Integration. So from the physical world, I go to the higher mind level and I ascend there, but now I am not rejecting the world, I am integrating it. Then I go to the next, exactly what's happening in the physical world. Na? When life is coming in, is life superior to matter? No doubt. But is it rejecting matter? No. It has incorporated matter and life and is creating living beings. When it goes to mind, it's a higher plane. But is mind rejecting matter and life? No. So exactly this is what nature is doing. Sremda says we will do the same. So when you go up, don't reject the lower. Integrate it into your consciousness. Then go higher up. Integrate it. So when you reach the highest level, matter also is real to you. Spirituality also real to you. That's what he means. So that was an interesting question. So, limited. On the other hand, now, we are no longer bound and limited in the inner side of our being by the determinations and creations of nature. On the other, the dynamic side, this original freedom enables the consciousness to create a world of determinations without being bound by it. What does he mean by the dynamic side? The dynamic side is a physical manifestation. Because spirit is static. There is no need for movement there. There is no movement. It is permanent. Infinite, eternal, featureless but static. The physical world is nothing static. Constant movement. Even the table, if you go down to the atomic level, there is movement. So everything in the physical world is movement and transience. So that's what he means by the dynamic. So when you experience the dynamic side, he means the saguna. The feature, the forms. Okay? So he's saying, on the other, the dynamic side, the original freedom enables the consciousness to create a world of determinations without being bound by it. Now, that is exactly described in the Bhagavad Gita as remain in the physical world. Don't reject it. But don't be affected by the imperfections of the physical world. Like the lotus leaf in water. The lotus leaf never gets wet. It is in water, but never gets wet. You put 3 drops on it, it will slide off. So that is how. So you can, without rejecting the physical world, remain free of the imperfections of the physical world. That's what he means. Okay? So, on the other, the dynamic side, this original freedom enables the consciousness to create a world of determinations without being bound by it. On the other hand, an ascetic, when he goes up and sees the physical world as unreal, he escapes. I have nothing to do with something which is false. I escape, I go out. That's a possibility for him. But not for Sremda. He says, don't reject. Integrate. Ascend and integrate. Ascend and integrate. A whole chapter is there. Ascension and integration. So, and he's saying, it enables it also to withdraw from what it has created and recreate it in a higher truth formula. So that's exactly what I meant by integration. So you can, without rejecting it, take it to another level and see it in a different way and create a higher formula. One example of what this sentence is, we can say, when I am at the sense level, I am seeing the sun rising. For me, it's an absolute reality that the sun is going up. But I go from the sense level to the mind level. And science is at the mind level. And science is telling you, illusion. The sun is not going at all. It is the earth that is going round. Your view of things has changed. So, then you have not rejected the sun or the earth, but your view has changed. You have integrated into a higher reality. That's what is meaning by the sentence. Okay, so without being bound enables it also to withdraw from what it has created and recreate in a higher truth formula. Clear, right? It is on this freedom that is based the spirit's power of infinite variation of the truth possibilities of existence, and also its capacity to create without tying itself to its workings, any and every form of necessity or system of order. It goes on creating, but it never gets tied down by what it is created. That's what he's saying. So, and any the individual being too, by experience of these negating absolutes, the negative absolutes are the nirvana, okay, the indeterminate negative absolutes, can participate in that dynamic liberty. So the ascetic is going and participating only in the negative absolute. But Sridhar is saying, having received the negative absolute, it's a freedom. Now with that freedom, I can come back into the physical world and enter into my body, mind, life again. But now I will not be subject to my senses. I will use the body, mind, life, but I will not be subject to my senses. I am not a slave anymore of. That's what is meaning. See? Read the sentence carefully. The individual being too, the individual man, by experience of these negating absolutes, can participate in that dynamic liberty, can pass from one order of self-formulation to a higher order. In other words, I need not reject the physical world. The ascetic and the Mayavadins are saying, if you remain here, you are bound to be under the subjection of senses and gravitation. But Sridhar is saying, no, I need not be. I can be free. We all think that gravitation is a universal force, not psychological, physical. I am talking physical. But even physically there can be, gravitation can be negated. You can levitate. So that's also psychologically, that's what he's saying. Okay? Then he's saying, no. At the stage when from the mental it has to move towards a supramental status, one most liberatingly helpful, if not indispensable experience that may intervene is the entry of a total nirvana of mentality and mental ego, a passage into the silence of the spirit. In any case, a realization of the pure self must always precede the transition to that mediating eminence of the consciousness from which a clear vision of the ascending and descending stairs of the manifested existence is commanded, and the possession of the free power of ascent and descent becomes a spiritual prerogative. So, if you want to go to the supermind, you have to go to the negative experience. You have to go through the self. You can't go to the supermind directly, not possible. That's what he's saying. Okay?
So in Savitri, when he says, one cannot enter heaven who has not passed through hell.
Basically the same meaning, but of course nirvana is not hell. But still, that's right. This is true. What you're saying is true. Okay? The power of ascent and descent becomes a spiritual prerogative. That's another thing, because a normal yogi, when he goes up into the spiritual plane of consciousness, if he decides, like Sridhar is saying, that no, I will descend again into my body, mind, life, he will become a prisoner of the senses again. Now his experience will only be a faint memory. But he will again, his desires will come back, his anger will come back, his greed will come back, and he will be what he was earlier. But it is also possible to come back without being subject to these things.
Is it true that Vivekananda never got rid of his anger?
Vivekananda?
Never got rid of his anger.
No, he didn't. In fact, what happened with Vivekananda is very interesting. The moment he realized who he really was, He didn't want anything to do with the world. He told his friend, after he left his body, he went in a subtle body to his friend and told him, very interesting phrase, I have spat out the body. The soul is in the body, or the body is in the soul. I have spat out the body. It was something useless, I have spat it out. Purposely he left his body. He didn't. He had his imperfections. He was very impatient with some of the people around and all that. That is what many people don't understand. Even Champaklal, okay? He used to get quite angry. Okay, somebody went and told Champaklal-ji, I want to see mother, but maybe she is very busy. Maybe I should not disturb her. He got furious. Who are you to think that you can disturb the mother? Can she be disturbed by you? Even this, he did not have got angry at all. But he used to get angry quite easily. In fact, in one letter to Nirodha, Sri Aurobindo says, oh, you don't know about Champaklal? His anger, you don't know about him? But what a man, my God. Unbelievable. His devotion and his service. So it's possible to experience the self and disappear into the infinite. Which the Jain is doing, which the Buddhist is doing, which the ascetic is doing. But Sri Aurobindo says, no, come back and now be master of body, mind, life and not slave. That's what he's saying. An independent completeness of identity with each of the primal aspects and powers, not narrowing as in the mind into a soul engrossing experience, seeming to be final and integral, for that would be incompatible with the realization of the unity of all aspects and powers of existence, is a capacity inherent in consciousness in the infinite. I can experience the highest even while I am in the lowest. That's what he's saying. It is this capacity is there in man. Okay? Which the ascetic is denying. The Buddhist also is denying. If you are here, you are in imperfection. Permanent imperfection. Sri Aurobindo is denying that. Okay, then he is saying, but the supermind keeps always and in every status or condition the spiritual realization of the unity of all. The intimate presence of that unity is there even within the complete grasp of each thing. That's interesting again. He's saying that in every limited thing you can see the infinite. Again we come back to those 4 lines of Blake.
Blake, yes.
Okay. So, to see a world in a, to see a world in a grain of sand. Yeah, and heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. That's what he's saying. Intimate presence of that unity is there even within the completest grasp of each thing. Each state given its whole delight of itself, power and value. There is thus no losing sight of the affirmative aspects even when there is the full acceptance of the truth of the negative. In other words, the divine can be featureless and appear to you as nihil, as zero. But he can also be full of all characteristics. That's what he's saying shortly. The overmind keeps still the sense of this underlying unity. We have to go back to we have actually gone beyond our time and there is a little more. So we'll have to describe the triple status of the supermind and the overmind consciousness. I think we can keep that for next time.
Thank you, Ranga. Namaste all. Wonderful session.